So, to start with, let me remind you and myself to arouse bodhicitta as we listen to these teachings. That is to say, thinking in terms of what will benefit oneself and all beings. It won't do to just satisfy or make ourselves happy when those around us are suffering. And so our happiness is, contingent or ensured by all beings finding a state of temporary and, in particular, ultimate happiness, the ultimate happiness of awakening to their own absolute nature. And so with this in mind, then listening to the teachings in order to know how to practice in such a way, how to hold our mind, how to conduct ourselves mentally, physically, and verbally in order to ensure that that awakening occurs for oneself and all others. And so we listen to these teachings as instructions on how to particularly here conduct ourselves as a bodhisattva, not just a bodhisattva in the, not just a bodhisattva in the true sense of the word, a great Maha Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, but even a bodhisattva such as we, who have taken the same vow as a great bodhisattva. That is to say, we've taken the vow to attain enlightenment for the sake of all beings. And although we may rightly hesitate to broadcast that we are a bodhisattva, nonetheless, according to the teachings and Shantideva's teachings, as soon as you give rise and to that aspiration to attain enlightenment and take the pledge to attain that enlightenment, to follow through with that aspiration and actualize it, then technically we are bodhisattvas. And then we are also studying the way of the bodhisattva. So with that attitude, to listen in order to know, and we know in order to practice, to apply the teachings. That's the that's the trick of Dharma, is to, we may enjoy or we may feel the importance of Dharma teachings, but unless we figure out how to take that and actually apply it to our mind, then Dharma and our mind will be as far apart as, as they say, as far apart as heaven and earth. And as precious as Dharma may be, it may just be relegated to not being particularly useful or important or significant in times when we undergo upheavals in our lives, including death. So we need to not only aspire to awakening for the sake of beings, but also resolve to apply the teachings. So far, what we're discussing now is the dedication chapter. The 10th chapter of dedication, we started on that last time. And as we mentioned, the vision that Shantideva presents here as in dedication is one in which we as the dedicator, the practitioner, are cultivating these qualities of the path of conduct of the bodhisattva, the path of bodhicitta, and that even though we're dedicating and making aspirations, these are methods to practice loving kindness and compassion. Like in the very first verse, he says, I dedicate all this merit for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. But then, following that, then he's going into very specific dedications and aspirations. We should take those as each point here as a unique training in our mind in making aspirations of love and compassion. This is the bodhicitta of wishing bodhicitta or aspiration bodhicitta that are elaborated on in the context of the four immeasurables. So we also need to bring to bring to the practice our understanding of the basic principles of the path. That is to say, reflecting on karma, reflecting that suffering, the suffering of body, speech, and mind, the suffering of sentient beings, arises from causes. and those causes, as we understand from karma, that the effect of an action is only experienced by the actor, by the performer of an action. And so there's nothing that we can experience, or let's put it in a different, everything that we experience as the result of karma that our mind, our speech, and our body has engaged in, has done. And so to accept that and deepen that through these aspirations, sort of combining whatever depth of understanding and confidence and faith we have in karma, then by bringing that and applying these aspirations, then they both, on the one hand, have the they both empower our aspirations, and then those aspirations deepen our understanding of karma. And then, secondly, understand that there is no birth, there's no birth in samsara that is without suffering. Even if one manages to understand karma to the point where it gives you the power to give up negative actions by understanding the consequences and engaging in wholesome, virtuous actions, still there's no birth in samsara that's not of the nature of suffering. And so in the second point, then to deepen or arouse and deepen or have this renunciation pervade our experience, our life. Renunciation meaning a determination to be free of the causes of samsara, which fundamentally is ignorance of our true nature. And a determination to reveal that true nature is this second principle of the path, second element of the path. And third, and of course, the whole theme of the Bodhisattva conduct is developing loving kindness and compassion and bodhicitta. And so whatever means we can apply in order to develop there's these loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, then we should practice in such a way that those become greater and greater, extending infinitely. And on the ground, having a greater and greater willingness to help others, to keep giving rise to a willingness to help others. In the Mahayana, in the traditional teachings of the Mahayana, then there is the practice of viewing every single sentient being as having been one's dear mother or father or grandmother or child or friend or enemy, a helper, a harmer, but to contemplate how, since we, as we here, you're what makes up your life, you have encountered the Dharma. And in order for that to have, and you've encountered the Dharma, and there's something about it that sort of resonated with you, which is not the case with everyone. You might be shocked at how uninterested and how uninteresting the Dharma is to everyone. But you have that connection, and that all came about through the kindness of others, whether they, whatever they did, however they acted, however they helped you or harmed you, then your inheritance or your what you've gained in this life from the point of view of having been introduced to the possibility to fully live up to your potential as an enlightened being has occurred. And so we should have a gratitude towards every single living thing for that. And in particular, of course, you've heard how you regard, whenever you see a mouse or a cockroach or an ant or a person or a dog or a cat or a deer or a goat or whatever else you see, fish, clams, slugs. Every time you see a living thing moving, then think of it as having been your mother and having given birth to you, and feel that intimate connection. And when you see that and you have that, feel that connection, then reinforce your intention to help that sentient being, and then expand it to include all sentient beings. That's one kind of a traditional Mahayana practice, is getting used to having an intimate connection with all beings, and being interested in their welfare out of gratitude. Gratitude is kind of a human characteristic. Almost, you say, the more gratitude you have for others, the more human you are. So sometimes you can make a resolution that, okay, today, every time I see another being, I'm going to think of them as having been my kind mother. If you don't have a mother that's kind, or that's been kind, then think of, I always like the way birds, if you've ever had the opportunity, well, you can YouTube I forget, you can YouTube, how birds, mother birds, take care of their little bird, what do you call them, bird, chickens, no, little small birds, how they take care of them when they're, after they hatch and stuff like that. It's very, very, it's an interesting contemplation, because they're also killing the worms at the same time, out of love and devotion to preserving the life of their little chicks. So anyway, dedication. So now, as we know in our practice, when we practice, if we have a formal practice, or even if you engage in some random act of virtue, then you should always bring forth to that act three sacred, three sacred principles. One is to allow to spring forth, or quickly, especially if it's a small thing you're going to do it with bodhicitta. And bodhicitta, of course, requires having confidence in your potential to awaken. Having confidence in your potential to awaken. And taking refuge is how we strengthen that confidence in our own potential as being, let's say, real, doable. So taking refuge and arousing bodhicitta at the outset of a act of virtue, and then as you practice virtue, do so as we talked about last time, I think. When we do an act of virtue, then we should we should do it free of the limitations of the three spheres, beyond the three spheres. And then in the conclusion, we dedicate the merit of that to the enlightenment of all sentient beings. You create virtue, usually we create a virtue, and there's some limitation in the act and in the recipient of the act. Even if we have a very grand view, we have a limitation in quantity and in numbers of recipients of an act. We can take one bug outside to save it from being trampled inside or something like that. And so we dedicate the happiness that you've given to one person or one group, and then expand it infinitely. And dedicate it to infinite sentient beings. Infinite sentient beings is not so easy to think of what infinite sentient beings are. But that's through those three principles, then our merit is sealed, as we talked about, or the sealed, and it is sealed with the bodhicitta in the beginning and this bodhicitta in the end, at the conclusion, and so then that virtue, which to the best of our ability we do kind of undistracted, or ideally free of the three spheres, beyond the three spheres, then that virtue will continue to flourish our life, our practice, until enlightenment. Okay, so specifically, we began dedicating and making aspirations through for all beings in the 6 possible realms of existence. Starting at basically we're starting at the bottom, the worst place, which is the hell realms. And again, I have to say, we should keep in mind here that the previous chapter, the 9th chapter, which we haven't gone into yet, is the chapter on wisdom, the chapter that is a definitive teachings on the absolute truth of shunyata, of emptiness. And now we're talking about the hell realms. Okay, so even though we haven't touched on the wisdom chapter yet, at the end of the carefulness chapter, I think in the carefulness chapter, you remember, and in several other places, of course, this wisdom is introduced. And here he's saying how, of course, he's talking about the kleshas in the carefulness chapter. Carefulness chapter is, if you remember, is identifying the kleshas, the afflictive mental states, as being harmful and avoiding them. And that they are, the kleshas are personified in our direct experience, as in the hell realms, the kleshas are personified as, here he says, the jail guards of the prisons of samsara, the butchers and tormentors of infernal realms, all lurk within me, that is to say, in my mind, in the web of craving. That's not what I wanted to say. What is that? Where did it say? I swear it's there. Anyway, there's one verse I skips, but how he says here, they are simply mirages. Like everything, like when Shantideva is talking about the hell realms and dedicating and making aspirations for those beings in the hell realms, he's saying here, it says they are simple mirages. And so take heart, banish your fear, and strive to know their nature. Why suffer needlessly the pain of hell? So this is why he was presenting this chapter on wisdom. It's to strive to know the nature of experience, the nature of phenomena. Why, as long as we don't understand the nature of phenomena, then everything we experience will take to be what it's not. We'll take it to be real, when in fact it is just a mirage, it's just an illusion, it's just a dream, as it says in the different prajna teachings. And as we also hear again and again, Rinpoche always taught how even if we have some understanding of emptiness, of shunyata, we should never give up or never avoid karma. We should always pay attention to karma. As Guru Rinpoche is said, how my view, he said, is as vast as space. My actions are as fine as a flower. So these are the what do we say, the inseparability of absolute and relative truth. They're not two things. So so given that sort of ultimate aspect, then here Shantideva is appreciating how, from the point of view of, say, the Bodhisattva, everything is an illusion. From the point of view of sentient beings, everything is real, and they're suffering. So, and I think we went up to verse 4, which says, throughout the spheres and reaches of the world in hellish states, as many as there are, may beings who abide there taste the bliss and peace of Sukhavati. So that's the theme, the present point, the theme right now is the hell realms. It's the most suffering. It's very appropriate to really go to where it's the most difficult. And again, beings are experiencing, we and other sentient beings, all ordinary beings, are experiencing the projection and personification, both in the projection and personification of our afflictive emotions, our afflictive mental states. Anger, particularly, is what's the feature of what's called the hell realms, or the experience of hellish suffering. Generally speaking, it is subsumed under heat and cold, hot and cold. So here in the 5th verse he says, may those caught in the freezing ice be warmed, and from great clouds of bodhisattvas torrents rain in boundless streams to cool those burning and infernal fires. So those who are in freezing, which is the result of this sort of cold anger. What do you call it? Cold anger. I think we call it, is that passive aggressive, maybe? Something like that. Cold-hearted anger. Then there's, may these clouds of bodhisattvas torrents, streams, these remove all the pain and fill those beings who are freezing with warmth and joy, the warmth of bodhicitta. May they experience that bodhicitta from the bodhisattvas, and may they give rise to the aspiration to enter into the bodhisattva path. And similarly, these rains of torrents, rain in boundless streams, meaning all the perfections of enlightened mind are showered down on the hell beings that are experiencing cold and heat, and cools those in the burning fires, and removing all pain and filling them with a great joy. And make an aspiration, all these aspirations, we make a twofold. One, to express our love for sentient beings, or to develop this immeasurable love, immeasurable loving kindness, by dedicating a virtue to the relief of the suffering and to their happiness, and making aspirations that they are free from pain, in this case hot and cold, and that they are likewise, or as well, free of the kleshas that bring about this kind of suffering. So happiness and the cause of happiness, and the suffering and the cause of suffering, it makes up the kind of aspiration. And here, since, as it mentions in the previous verse, a being in samsara, hell being, God being, heavenly being, whatever, human being, all share the feeling that they have a body, that there's this constant embodiment that we are habitually engaged in a very sort of fundamental or subtle way. So hell beings have the feeling of having a body, of the various, I don't know if I want to go too much here, teachings, but hell beings, like human beings, as we know from our own experience and what we see, we were born from a womb. One person gave birth to another person. That's a womb birth. Then there's the egg, sort of a twice, being born twice, sort of. Once they're born in an egg, and then second they come out of the egg. Then there's those beings who are just seem to, I don't know about the whole science of it, we're very highly capable to perceive so many different microscopic phenomena. But then, according to the teachings, then there's those beings who are born from moisture. Small little beings. And then there's those that are born what are called miraculously, or instantaneously, or miraculously. They have no, their birth is just spontaneous. And generally speaking, that's the way that hell beings are born. They just immediately, their mind immediately experiences itself in a body, in a hell realm, a hotter, cold hell realm. And then there are also beyond the, and you can, I'm sure maybe you're familiar, but it's good, interesting to challenge yourself to contemplate the 8 hot hells and the 8 freezing hells, the 8 cold hells. From various points of view. It's not just to make you feel uncomfortable, but contemplating samsara in general is helpful because we can begin to see how it is that we experience things, what the cause of our experience is. And if you meditate on, or if on the hell realms, if you sort of absorb yourself and think that you are experiencing the way that one or another of the hell realm is experienced, and you thoroughly sort of merge with that experience, you can begin to understand not only the suffering of it, the unbearable suffering of it, but also, because you're just meditating on it, you also can begin to intuit and have a greater intuition, or a greater intuition of what would cause that kind of suffering. What kind of act causes that kind of suffering? That you can tell that almost from your own experience of meditating in that immersion sort of way. And we're encouraged to that by even Patrul Rinpoche, and you look in Words of My Perfect Teacher, and he says how you should contemplate these states of samsara by any means necessary, or any means at your disposal. You know, literally, imaginatively, particularly we're talking about. Imagination is a great aid in coming to an understanding of things. In the next few verses, then Shantideva is dedicating and making aspirations for those who are born in what are called the neighboring hellish states. And one is this forest where the leaves are blades and swords. He says, may forests where leaves and blades are swords become sweet groves and pleasant woodland glades. And may the trees of miracle appear, supplanting those upon the hill of Shamali. This is the Shamali is a hill in the neighboring hell that give it a name. But there's these experiences of being driven, or of like seeing some object of your desire and then running towards it through this forest, and all the trees turn all their thorns and sword-like leaves against you, and you experience the pain of being slashed. And then you get to the top of this hill, and you think you're going to find the one that basically this has to do with sexual misconduct. You think you got to the one where you were attracted to, and they're not there, they're down on the bottom. And so you go charging down the hill, and then all the trees turn against you again, and you repeat this again and again and again. And so here we're making an aspiration and a dedication that wish, and with loving kindness and compassion, that all beings who are experiencing this find perfect comfort and happiness, and that they live in harmony with the Dharma. that their desires and their passion is in harmony with the conduct of the Bodhisattva path. Then the 7th verse has to do with this pit, this river of filth. May the very pits of hell be sweet. This is a river of filth, meaning it's filled with filthy filth. Whatever you think of as disgusting, that's what you see. May the very pit of hell be sweet, with fragrant pools, all perfumed with the scent of lotuses, and lovely with the cries of swan and goose and waterfowl, so pleasing to the ear. So all the results of this craving and anger that gives rise to this neighboring hell of this pits, may all those beings who are experiencing that karma, may they now rather experience like all the scent of lotuses and medicinal herbs and sweet flowers and so forth, and all things beautiful. May they experience that, and may they be free of the causes that gave rise to that previous experience of suffering, and may they enter into the path of engaging causes of virtue, being patient and careful in their actions. And 8, may fiery coals turn into heaps of jewels. Here, this is this a painful, this hell of unrelenting pain. What is it called? Matricide, killing your mother, people who kill their father, drawing the blood of or like injuring a very arhat, a very great being, these kinds of things, then they experience immediately a rebirth in this kind of a place, where there's just this rain of burning embers and coals. May all those who are experiencing that unrelenting suffering of constantly being in this rain of burning coals, may they experience heaps of jewels and flower petals falling on them, and may the burning ground that burns their legs, that they're sloshing around in this lava and burning ground, may that become a even cool, soft crystal floor. Then those who another experience in the hell, or where an individual or people, or where hell beings, maybe millions of them, are all squeezed into a place, and then the mountains that squeeze them in there begin to close in on them, and they become crushed. And then the mountains separate and they revive, then they crush again and again. May crushing hills become sublime abodes, and offering temples, dwellings of the Buddha. And so may all these beings rather experience palaces and comfortable living places where they can receive the teachings. And may they listen to those teachings, and may they be happy in their understanding of those teachings. May the hail of weapons, lava, fiery stones that fall on them become henceforth a rain of flowers, and all the mutual woundings with sharp blades. This is the result of those. This is what's called the reviving hell. All of this, and this has to do with those who die in war. That they experience again and again the same thing over and over and over again, of being attacked and then attacking and again being killed and slashed and beaten again and again and again, and revive and then again. So all the mutual woundings with sharp blades be now a rain of flowers thrown in play. So may all those beings rather find themselves amongst beautiful and handsome gods and goddesses, and they're all just playing like they're in a park. Then 10 here again, all those engulfed in the fiery Vaitarani. This is the river of ashes, it's like a molten river, what do you call it, unfordable. You can't, it's so wide you can't go across it. But this is the result of some kinds of stealing. Of course, in the commentary, it mentions a lot of actions that Dharma people commit that are harmful. And so this one has to do with sort of stealing the property of the Sangha. Also, fishing, any killing of things that have to do with the sea. And the experience is one of seeing objects of your desire bobbing up and down in this river, and you jump in and are burned up in it, and then revived, and again. Also, those who are commit negative actions out of pedophilia. They have a kind of a perverted, perverted sexual attachment, sexual lust for small children. He'd say this is a result of that. So then, with may they through all my, their flesh destroy their bodies bleached white as kunda flowers, which must be a white flower. So you jump in out of that and then get burnt up. All your flesh is the pain of feeling your flesh burnt up. So may they, through all my merits, strength, have godlike forms and sport with goddesses and Mandakini's peaceful streams. Mandakinis is the Mandakini River. It's the name of a river of nectar in the God realms. And so may they be completely freed from suffering, and may they be completely free of the causes of suffering. Rather, may they experience great joy and have very beautiful forms and have a very beautiful environment. See, we have the feeling of having a body, and we have the feeling of an environment. So our aspirations include both the kind of body that would be wonderful and a wonderful environment. And we make that aspirations with loving kindness. Then 11, what fear is it they'll ask? Okay, then we're shifting slightly here to, we're still in the hell realms, but we're making aspirations here, what's called for other power, to remove for the other power to remove the pains of hell. First, we were making directly aspirations, understanding the suffering of our mother sentient beings, and we're making aspirations that they be free of that suffering and the causes of it, that they have happiness and the causes of it. Here now we're making aspirations that others have power. Here it says, particularly first here, he's mentioning Vajrapani. So we're invoking Vajrapani to enter into the work of freeing beings from suffering. What fear is it, they'll ask, that grips the henchmen of the deadly Lord, the frightful vultures and the carrion crows? In other words, all of the henchmen, all these personifications of our kleshas are all disappearing, and instead, what noble strength is it that brings us joy and drives away our dreadful night? And looking skyward, they will see the shining form of Vajrapani. Then may their sins be quenched in joy, and may they go to him. So particularly those who have received empowerment into Vajrapani, this enlightened bodhisattva who also appears as or it's a Buddha who appears as an enlightened bodhisattva holding a Vajra. And this indicates how Vajrapani, of course, Vajrapani is the embodiment of all the power of all the Buddhas. And that power of all enlightened beings is expressed as Vajrapani holding Vajra. So that's what we could say, that's what that indicates. And he expresses power, so he has great illumination, illumination. And so may all those beings who happen to have are experiencing the results of their negative actions and have received the blessings of Vajrapani, then may they see him now. That's the idea. And may everyone in that hell being's place there receive the blessings and empowerment of Vajrapani. And may all their karma be purified and be born in the pure realm, in the pure environment of Vajrapani. Then the next verse is, the 12th verse is about Avalokiteshvara, invoking those who are making an aspiration that those who received Avalokiteshvara blessing, that they have a vision of Chenrezik, Avalokiteshvara, and as he says here, particularly those who have previously received empowerment, those who have meditated on Avalokiteshvara or drawn or made images, and these kinds of things associated with Lokeshvara. So when they see the seething lava flood of hell extinguished in a rain of blossoms, drenched in fragrant streams, at once fulfilled in bliss, they'll ask, how can this be? May then the denizens of hell behold the one who holds the lotus. So may all beings, may all those hell beings have a vision of Avalokiteshvara, and by that may all their horrible actions that they've done in the past, may they be completely and instantaneously purified thoroughly, and may they go to the Pure Land of Avalokiteshvara. May they be reborn in Potala or one of Avalokiteshvara's pure realms. So one who holds lotus means Avalokiteshvara. And lotus here symbolizes all the compassion of all the Buddhas. What does he say? Okay, yeah, nothing much more. But here, just like Vajrapani holds the Vajra, indicating all the power of the Buddhas, and then Avalokiteshvara holds the lotus, indicating all the compassion of all the Buddhas. Then, next is a Manjushri, Manjughosha. Friends, throw away your fears and quickly gather here, for who is it who comes to us to banish dread? This gleaming youth with bound-up hair, this loving bodhisattva, saving and protecting every being, whose power relieves all pain, bestowing joy. So here the language is just by seeing Vajrapani, the expression of all the wisdom of all the Buddhas, then all the hell beings, they become free of fear, and they encourage each other, and they encourage each other in this way. Behold the 100 gods who lay their crowns before his feet. So now all the gods in the higher realms, out of their recognizing the awesomeness of Vajrapani, of Manjushri, then they offer their crowns, which is to say they offer everything under their power. If a king offers you their crown, that means you get everything that the king that's under that crown, which is the king and all the realm. So all these, out of respect and devotion for Manjughosha, then they offer him their crown. The rain of flowers that falls upon his head, his eyes moist with compassion, the splendor of his house, in other words, his palace, his environment, that echoes praises of 1,000 goddesses. May those in hell thus cry on seeing Manjughosha. So may they be happy, may they be blissful at seeing Manjughosha. And verse 15 says, and likewise through my roots of virtue, seeing bodhisattvas like Samantabhadra, so likewise through my roots of virtue, may they encounter bodhisattvas like Samantabhadra, who frees them from their stains, and who they listen to, the teachings from. Those clouds of bliss. In other words, it's a euphemism for the bodhisattvas. They're clouds of bliss, all laden with cooling scented rain. They're blessings of all the perfections. They're exuding all the perfections. May all those languishing in hell come now to perfect joy. May they have a perfect joy of the joy of a higher rebirth and a joy of enlightenment, Buddhahood. Okay, then now that's the hell realms. We're kind of done with that. That's all. I wanted to get through that a little bit. Then let's see, verse 16. now he's talking about the result of ignorance, which is the animal realms. And he says, and may the stooping animals, the dudro, Tibetan word for animals is those who go stooped over. They're stooped over. Animals are stooped over. So I translated it kind of literally like that. And may all the stooping animals be freed. So some, as we know, we see most animals, maybe 90% or more, are in the ocean. And they feed on one another. That's their suffering, is always looking for food, or being food, or eating food. The little one, always says that the big ones eat the little ones, and the little ones gnaw away at the big ones. That sort of sums up the suffering of most animals. Then there's the animals that are scattered on the surface of the earth. And then there's those that are free, that wander freely, and those that are, what is it called? Domesticated, those that are owned, like horses and cattle and flocks of animals that are owned by people, usually. People, I guess, ants, they also have flocks of aphids. The aphids do a certain work of sucking from the leaves, and then the ants, they milk the aphids. So you can see them do that. Anyway, so where was I? Oh, so may the stooping animals be freed from fear of being preyed upon each other's food. So aspire that they become endowed with learning, intelligence, that they have the capacity to do abstract thinking, so they can begin to see the results of actions, like they can see that if they do something, this will happen. And so then to have that kind of intelligence, and then particularly have the ability to learn Dharma, so that they can learn, as we did, what to avoid in order to prevent suffering, and what to engage in order to provide happiness. So this is our aspiration. May they attain a higher rebirth, and may they attain enlightenment. A higher rebirth simply means a rebirth that's less suffering. It's high and low. In our language, we use high rebirth and low rebirth. It's not that a high rebirth is, it's not like a class of people or something, or a class in that sense of structure, but it's all defined by greater or lesser suffering. As we mentioned, there's no place in samsara that's free of suffering. Some is more than others, just because of the infallibility of causes and their result, or of karma. So our aspirations should take that understanding into consideration and pray that they become free of their ignorance, that they become free of the suffering that arises from ignorance, and that they attain a higher rebirth, gain learning, and become free of samsara, and attain absolute awakening of Buddhahood. And may the famished spirits have such joy as those who dwell within the northern continent. Okay, then above the, well, not above, but then here the next two lines have to do with the pretas, yada, or what we call tormented spirits, or it's called famished spirits. Tormented spirits mean they're tormented by particularly thirst and hunger. And of course, there's many different, there's a wide variety of beings, living beings, mind-owning beings, who experience themselves as being tormented spirits. There's those who, and you can study in the Where's My Perfect Teacher and other places, all the details. There's those in general, there's those that are outwardly obscured and those that are inwardly obscured. Outwardly obscured is they never see the object that they are craving, that they desire. If they're thirsty, they never see one drop of liquid water. And they're constantly searching, and searching is painful. And the descriptions is quite intense, actually. Both the environment and the way they experience their body that's painful. The environment is painful, and the mind is in the anguish of never finding what they search for. Again, those that are inwardly obscured, every once in a while do find what a drop of water, but it turns into like a drop of molten lava or something like that, and it burns them completely away from the inside. These kinds of things. Or they see this great feast and they rush toward it, and boom, the gate comes down and army comes out and slaughters them, so that's that. So there you can see that the distinctions in how karma manifests different experiences to the mind as a projection of in this case covetousness, greed, covetousness, parsimoniousness, cheapskate. That there's a wide area where that could mature. I think there's 36 different forms of pretas. Even there's like what we think of as ghosts, and of course in Tibet they had, I don't know where they all are. I know some people I've talked to who are fully haunted by ghosts and some kind of a invisible tormented being who is. But it seems like our the source of a lot of our teachings are in Tibet, and I don't know what was with Tibet, but they've just got so many different kinds of hungry ghosts or tormented spirits. And of course, Buddha Shakyamuni also taught extensively on the different forms of existence of these tormented spirits. Some of them live in our world, and some of them live in like the Bardo world, and some of them anyway, there's a lot of different forms, but they all share this struggle with almost like a need for satisfaction, the thirst, particularly associated with thirst. So may they experience others only, let's see, how do I say? May all the hungry ghosts experience loving kindness from others. May they experience compassion from others. May they give rise to loving kindness. May they practice generosity. May they attain a state of being, of life, where they can practice wholehearted generosity. May all their wishes be fulfilled, like that. And 17, and may they be replete and satisfied by streams of milk that pour from noble Lord Avalokita's hand, and bathing in it, may they be refreshed and cooled. So that's very beautiful. Yeah. Very beautiful verse. Here you're making an aspiration with the words. May they be satisfied by milk and all the vital nutrients that pour forth from Avalokiteshvara, from his two hands or feet, body. All those who appear in the Preta realms, and you can also pray to Chenrezig, to Avalokiteshvara, to be, may you be born, may you go and take birth in the pure realm, so you can, and free these beings. What's bothering me? I didn't even know I had a pocket, and there's a pocket here with something in it. I didn't even know I had it. As if you are inclined, or if you have a Chenrezi empowerment and practice Chenrezi from time to time, then it's a very kind of a beautiful enrichment or adjunct to the practice. That when you're done eating your own meal, that you practice the act as is described here, that you think from all the pores of the form of Chenrezig, from his hands. Sometimes there's this two-arm Kasarpani form where his hand is in the gesture of generosity and the other holds a lotus, and you can think from that hand all the nectar, all your food that you've eaten. If you're a practitioner, then you think of all of your food as being nectar, and then you eat it, meaning you're making an offering to the overall form of Chenrezig, and to all the winds and channel, or all the different channels are all become different forms of the mandala there that are all being offered this nectar, which causes a great bliss to arise. And then again, when you're done eating, then you think that from your hands, I guess 1,000 hands would be wonderful, that from these hands all nectar flows unceasingly from the form and the hands, and it goes and seeps down into the earth and cools and satisfies all those in the lower, under the earth, all those on the surface of the earth, all those above the earth, and all realms, all these realms, just as are described here, that you do it. And recite the six-syllable mantra, and think that all beings are hearing the six-syllable mantra, and they recite the six-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. And by that, all their suffering or all their cravings are satisfied, all their suffering is decreased, all their pain is made to disappear, eliminated, and all the kleshas, all the anger and craving and stupidity that brings about the experience of the lower realms of suffering, that the causes of those are all eradicated, those kleshas, all like that, okay? So that's a bonus. That's a bonus teaching outside the commentary teaching. But there's the other power, and then what's called self-power. You see that a lot in Asian or East Chinese, Japanese. The self-power is like a Zen practitioners, Chan, dhyana, meditation practitioners. It's their own power. Then the other power is Amitabha, predominantly. Now it's the Amitabha Pure Land practitioners. You don't see that so often used, those two terms. Here the common Temple Kunpal uses it as the other power, but in Asia they make a big division. They don't make a big division, but they categorize those two kinds of Buddhism: the self-power Buddhism and the other power Buddhism. I think in our tradition of Mahayana, just in the paramita practice or vajra practices, then there's no difference. They're inseparable. Or like say, use both. Okay, so we'll leave it tonight at this. That was quite, going over this today was quite tough. I felt quite tough. Anyway, that's all. The only word I can think of is tough. So really, practicing the loving kindness is almost that loving kindness, and for that, of course, we have to have a relationship with those that we practice loving kindness for. We can't hate someone and practice loving kindness towards them at the same time. So we have to do something. We have to be radical. Dharma practice is for radicals. We have to turn the root of our mind, turn it around. Through loving kindness. People not thinking like, oh, I should practice loving kindness towards my enemies. First is to see them not as your enemy. First, they're my enemy. They're causing great harm to me and those and others. And if we have an enemy who's causing harm to me and others, then probably there are others that are also our enemies that we're not thinking of when we say they're causing harm to me and others. When we say others, usually we mean those that are on our group, our side. So first we have to equalize enemies and friends, those who are close to us and those who we have remote or distant, disinterested feelings towards. We have to equalize what's called self and others, or friends and enemies, benefactors and harm doers. We need to equalize them. And there's methods to do that, of course. And when we do that, then we add to that equal quality, then we can wholeheartedly practice loving kindness, wishing them happiness, and then practice compassion, fearing for their suffering, unable to endure the thought of them suffering, even. Like that. Then from this comes bodhicitta, the aspiration to attain enlightenment in order to really bring them happiness, in order to really uproot their suffering. I must attain awakening. And so this progression, loving kindness, or let's say equalizing self and other, then loving kindness, then compassion, then the bodhicitta. It's just the chemistry of the path. So we shouldn't be too quick to leap over equalizing enemies and friends and immediately start feeling compassion, because it will be biased. And it will increase our bias. So first we need to practice in this way. This is the way our tradition teaches these immeasurables, four immeasurables. And the four immeasurables kind of, I don't know if the word is right, but they morph into, or they become the basis for the practice of the paramitas. Paramitas have to be imbued with these loving kindness, compassion, and this aspiration, bodhicitta, equanimity, or equalness. Equanimity is not maybe the correct term. It's equalness. Okay, so I think we'll end here tonight at this point. And we'll do our very short, but hopefully very powerful dedication and aspiration. There's 5 verses, and Shantideva, he put, 57 verses, 56 and a half, 57 verses. Later we can recite that together. So again, in keeping with the way we discussed last week, we should always we should always be cognizant of the virtue that we are dedicating. So here, first hour and a half of patient listening and so on and so forth. And then all the virtue of your whole day from the morning until now, and all the virtue that you've ever accumulated in the past, all in this life, all that you ever will accumulate in the future, and all the virtue of all good people everywhere who have accumulated virtue in the past, present, and will in the future, and all the arhats, and all the pratyeka Buddhas, all the bodhisattvas. All this virtue is included in what we are dedicating, and to all beings. All the virtue of this practice and all that is gathered throughout the 3 times, I dedicate to all beings without exception, so that they may attain Buddhahood. Following and emulating the omniscient and courageous Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra, I completely dedicate all virtue. Since dedicating merit is praised as supreme by victorious ones of the 3 times, I completely dedicate these roots of virtue for the sake of practicing excellent conduct. May the teachings of Lord Buddha, the only source of benefit and happiness, long remain in this world. May the lives of those who uphold these teachings be as stable as a victory banner. Supreme Bodhicitta is so very precious. Where it has not yet arisen, may it arise. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but evermore grow and flourish. Okay.